Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. I'm Natalia Moczulska and this is the news. Today, Poland celebrates the National Day of Remembrance of the Cursed Soldiers. Established in 2011 by a free and democratic Poland, the holiday confirms the role played by the Cursed Soldiers on the road to independence. Throughout Poland, ceremonies are held to commemorate those who took up the fight for the freedom of Poland. President Andrzej Duda laid a wreath at the monument to General Emil Fjodor-Nil in Sierpc. The place was used for the shooting of a film about a general who was sentenced to death by hanging by the communists. To this day, his body has not been found. They gave their lives for Poland, as they wanted it to regain its true freedom, sovereignty, and independence. They died for Poland, I believe, for the kind of Poland we have today. A Poland that is sovereign, independent, a Poland that conducts its affairs in a resolute and effective manner, a Poland that can look after its interests. The official celebration of the National Day of Remembrance began at the Museum of Polish Cursed Soldiers and Political Prisoners of the People's Republic of Poland, which is located in a former detention center at 37 Rakowiecka Street in Warsaw. In that same place, Polish soldiers opposed to communist rule were detained, tortured, and killed. Today becomes a symbolic place as a symbol of the victory of truth over lies, heroism over betrayal, memory over oblivion. The fight for the cause, the fight for the highest values is the most important thing, and it does not depend on what the chances of winning this cause are, because if that were the case, there would never be any people who in a hopeless situation stand on the right side. On the side of truth, on the side of independence, on the side of freedom, honor and glory to the heroes. Representatives of the highest state authorities, veterans organizations, and the Institute of National Remembrance laid wreaths at the plaque commemorating the activists of the 4th Main Board of the Freedom and Independence Association. Lieutenant Colonel Łukasz Ciepliński and his subordinates Adam Lazarowicz, Mieczysław Kawalec, Józef Rzepka, Franciszek Błażej, Józef Batory, and Karol Chmiel. They were executed in Mokotów prison on March 1st, 1951. In reference to this event, today is the National Day of Remembrance. The interior of the reconstructed cell of Lieutenant Colonel Łukasz Ciepliński was opened today at the Museum of the Cursed Soldiers. It was in this cell that he wrote his famous secret messages. In a letter to his wife and child, he wrote what values were most important to him and how he wanted his son to be raised. That is, he emphasized Poland, Christ, family. The Cursed Soldiers carried a universal message. Beatings, obviously strong interrogations, standing for hours, punishment, abuse, elaborate torture, and even in the case of Ciepliński there is talk of psychotropic drugs, which he was forced to take in order to get some information out of him. Many bodies of cursed soldiers have not been found till this day. The communists tried to erase them from public consciousness, for example through propaganda by calling them bandits. They received death sentences in trumped-up trials, and executions were carried out with a shot to the back of the head. Later they were buried in nameless graves, cemetery dumpsters, and basements of security offices. It took a long time for the Polish nation to mature enough to give due glory to the soldiers of the anti-communist underground, our heroes. A number of excavation works have been carried out over the years, such as here at the Łączka quarters. This is also the burial site of those murdered by the security organs in 1945 to 1956, at the cemetery wall of the Military Powązki Cemetery in Warsaw. The work is headed by Professor Krzysztof Szwagrzyk. For many years, the remains of more than 300 convicts were hidden, among them many cursed soldiers.
320 skazańców.
Their steadfast attitude became a model for later independence and solidarity movements of the communist period. They passed on the traditions of the struggle for independence to workers, farmers, and students. They were the ones who created the Workers' Defense Committee and later the summation of the entire great independence movement, the more than 10 million strong Solidarity organization. For the younger generation of Poles, the cursed soldiers are increasingly becoming a model model of patriotic attitudes. Even the crosses that are standing here, 2 years ago, I think a few scouts nailed these crosses down. So it's kind of like this constant work with the troop, following these life steps of Witold Pilecki, following his story. For many years, patriotic circles and veterans organizations have nurtured and spread knowledge and memory of the soldiers of the anti-communist underground. Since the existence of Gazeta Polska, we have been writing about the cursed soldiers. We have promoted exhibitions, and we have participated very strongly in the preparation of the first celebration of the cursed soldiers, which was on March 1st, 2010. The National Day of Remembrance of the Cursed Soldiers is being celebrated for the 13th time. The legislative initiative to enact a new holiday was taken in 2010 by the late President Lech Kaczyński. It doesn't matter whether we agree ideologically with the American president, because it is in Poland's interest to have the best possible relations with the U.S. That's why the U.S. president is standing in the heart of Warsaw for the second time in a year and saying that here is a free country, here is NATO, here is the strength of the alliance, President Duda said in the latest issue of the weekly Gazeta Polska. President Andrzej Duda referred to the tragedy in Przewodów last November. With the war going on across our eastern border, Poland must be prepared for provocations from Russia and Belarus. We must be prepared for provocations, and we must remain vigilant. Indeed, we can expect them, but it is very important in such a situation to have composure and to act thoughtfully without hysteria. Let me use another example. The Allies are grateful to us for our reasonableness and cold blood in the face of the tragedy in Przewodów. According to the president, the events on the Polish-Belarusian border in the fall of 2021 were planned actions of Belarusian and Russian services. I believe that this was an operation of the Lukashenko regime with the support of Russia. About this I am convinced, and not only me. I treat probably all the people responsible for the security of Poland who meet at the meetings of the National Security Bureau, and we do not generally have doubts in this group about what the operation was, who was behind it, and who controlled it. The invasion of Ukraine began on the morning of February 24, 2022, the day before President Andrzej Duda visited Kiev with the president of Lithuania. This was a signal to Zelensky and to the Ukrainians that Poland would not leave them alone in the war. This is extremely important because, let's remember, certain issues were settled. There were proposals from other sides that Zelensky should leave Kiev and go somewhere and so on. That is, in essence, for him to desert and lead to the demotivation of his troops. Poland not only then, but also later, gave these kind of signals that it would stand in solidarity until the very end. The war in Ukraine has contributed significantly to improving Polish-American relations. The United States has become a close ally of Poland, as evidenced by President Joe Biden's second visit to Poland in a year. Within Europe, a certain center of political gravity is shifting eastward. It's moving from the west more and more to the east. And Poland is that place of particular strategic importance, which was symbolically highlighted by the fact that during President Biden's visit to Warsaw, there was a meeting with the Bucharest Nine. Poland is not only the border of the European Union, but is also the eastern flank of NATO. It is for this reason that the Ministry of Defense is consistently rearming the Polish army. Last week, the U.S. Congress agreed to sell Poland nearly 500 Himars launchers. It is a kind of paradox that we have to spend huge amounts of money on weapons so that Russia will not want to attack Poland, so that in the calculations of this obsessed regime, such an attack would not pay off. President Andrzej Duda has made it clear that the alliance commitments between Poland and the United States are permanent. This was also confirmed by President Joe Biden in his speech in Warsaw. The U.S. leader stressed that Article 5 of the North Atlantic Treaty Agreement, which talks about mutual assistance, is sacrosanct. If there was no Polish military and Polish policy that serves the security of the United States, then they would have to send several divisions here, hundreds of thousands of soldiers. This is a great cost to the American budget. It is much cheaper and wiser to rely on certain allies, and a certain ally today is Poland. More than 10,000 U.S. military troops are currently stationed in Poland. Yesterday night, a passenger train and a cargo train collided head-on in Greece, killing at least 36 people and injuring dozens as the country's deadliest rail crash in living memory threw entire carriages off the tracks.
Ένα μεγάλο μπαμ ακούσαμε.
We heard a big bang. It was 10 nightmarish seconds. We were turning over in the wagon until we fell on our sides and until the commotion stopped. Then there was panic, cables everywhere, fire. The fire was immediate. As we were turning over, we were being burned. Fire was right and left.
Και εγώ ήμασταν κιόλας. Πήρε φωτιά δεξιά αριστερά.
Κατεβήκαμε κάτω, είχε πιάσει φωτιά.
We came down. A fire had erupted next to us. This man here saw a hole, so we managed to get out from where we were.
Όλοι από εκεί που ήμασταν.
The crash occurred as the passenger train that was headed to the northern Greece city of Thessaloniki from the capital Athens emerged from a tunnel near the town of Larissa. Cranes lifted derailed passenger carriages in the morning as rescuers continued to score through the smoldering, mangled mass of steel. One carriage stood on its side at almost 90 degrees from the rest of the wrecked train, with others tilting precariously. The passenger train was carrying 342 travelers and 10 crew, while 2 crew were on the cargo train, according to Hellenic train data. 66 of those injured were hospitalized, 6 of whom are in intensive care, a fire brigade official said. Many of the victims were thought to be university students on their way back from a long holiday weekend. The death toll was expected to rise further, officials said. The head of the emergency unit in Larissa Hospital, Apostolos Komnos, said most of the dead were young people in their 20s. Government spokesman Giannis Okinomo said the 2 trains had been running towards each other on the same track for many kilometers before the crash. The local station master in charge of signaling has been arrested, a police official said, as investigators tried to find out why the 2 trains had been on the same track. The government declared 3 days of national mourning from Wednesday, March 1st to Friday, March 3rd, with flags flying at half-mast in a tribute to the victims of the crash. Greece's aging railway system is in need of modernization, with many trains traveling on single tracks and signaling and automatic control systems still to be installed in many areas. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Please stay tuned for Poland Daily Weather, Poland Daily Business, and some of our other programs. But for me, it's have a wonderful evening.